morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio, and the pre-releases for Cosmic Eclipse are coming up rather quickly indeed. So I thought it would be good, like we've done a couple times in the past, though not consistently enough, that's going to change. It would be nice to have a look at the cards which are going to be particularly good in the pre-release. I'm not talking about the standard format here. I am talking about the cards that if you open them in a pre-release, and you always need to think, what am I going to open? You might not open it. If you don't, it's irrelevant. But if you do open these, they're going to be particularly good. Now, we're not worried about stuff like Blastoise and Piplup. Obviously, if you open a Tag Team GX, you are probably going to go ahead and play that. And similarly, in terms of trainer cards, you're probably going to play all the trainer cards you get, like Cynthia and Caitlyn, so we're not worried about those. We're talking about slightly under the radar cards that are particularly good in a pre-release. And we're going to start off having a little bit of a look at a pair, SNEASEL and WEAVILE. I actually like both of these quite a bit. SNEASEL, for 1 darkness energy, you flip a coin. If heads, you prevent all effective attacks, including damage, done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. Gives you immunity on a coin flip. It's quite nice. But of course, you can't play it just for that. We do need a decent attack as well. And WEAVILE I quite like. Now, free energy 110 is fine. Not amazing, it's fine. But what I really like here is that for 1 energy, you get to search your deck for any 2 cards and put them into your hand. So if you're playing 1 or 2 really good cards that you want to get, WEAVILE will help you to get them. 110 is alright. It gives you a water Pokemon you can use for darkness energy. SNEASEL has immunity on a coin flip. I think they're a nice pair. Speaking of immunity and coin flips, GLALIE. Now, the free energy, 120, can't use this attack next turn is fine, but it's a bit expensive. But 1 water energy, 30 damage, flip a coin. If heads, paralysis, and you discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, yes. We're only attaching 1 energy per turn in a pre-release. It is rare to have much energy acceleration at all, which means that discarding energy becomes way more powerful than it is in other formats. And then combine that with a paralysis, we like GLALIE. The last water Pokemon I want to mention quickly is Wishy-Washy. Now, Wishy-Washy isn't so much going to win the game as it is going to stop you losing the game. Free energy 130 is fine, it's way better in a pre-release. But at the end of your turn, if Wishy-Washy has any damage counters on, flip a coin. If tails, you shuffle it back into your deck. This is brilliant for buying yourself a turn. If you need to attach a couple more energy to one of your Pokemon, if you need a turn or 2 to get rolling, Wishy-Washy is phenomenal, because unless your opponent can do 180 or you really cannot flip a tails, your opponent's going to hit it a couple times, you're going to shuffle it back into your deck, and life is going to be good. Now, I told you we don't have much in terms of the way of energy acceleration, but one of the best we have here is ROTOM. ROTOM, for a single energy, allows you to attach 2 basic energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. And it is any basic energy here. It does not have to be a particular type, so it works in any deck. Then you add in 1 colorless energy, discard a card from your hand, draw 2, and you've got decent early game draw engine, and I'm kind of a little bit in love. Now, it's not particularly reliable, but SWOOBAT, for 1 psychic energy, your opponent chooses one of their Pokemon, and you do 90 damage to that Pokemon. On the downside, yes, your opponent has a choice. Your opponent directs the damage wherever they feel is best. But on the upside, pre-releases have a lot of weaker Pokemon, so this is going to KO a bunch, so I'm kind of alright with it. I'm loving it. Now, it's very expensive and you will need to buy yourself a turn, but if you can get it rolling, I absolutely adore the GUZZLORD. It does 120 damage for 4 energy, but if you take a KO, you take an extra prize. In a pre-release format, the majority of Pokemon are going to be KO'd by this, so then you just get to take 2 prizes. So it's kind of slow, but when it comes rolling, it should win in 2 turns. Something like ROTOM to accelerate energy, something like GLALIE to buy yourself a turn, could be absolutely huge with this. If you can get GUZZLORD rolling, I think it is one of the very best Pokemon in the set for a pre-release. I have got my top 4 Pokemon. I think 4 really do stand out. But let's just say this is potentially a little bit slow. When it works, amazing, but it might not always work. And the last one that didn't make my top 4 is AMBIPOM. 2 colourless energy, discard up to 2 cards from your hand, and you do 60 damage for each card discarded in this way. Now, in a pre-release, you're often going to just play 1 or 2 cards a turn. You often end up with a slightly bigger hand, so this essentially hits 120 for 2 energy, which is pretty gosh darned efficient. As a fun side note, you've also got the AMBIPOM with Darting Tail here, which says that once during a turn you may put the top card of your opponent's deck on the bottom of their deck. Doesn't really do very much unless you also get the lantern that lets you look at the top card of your opponent's deck, but I'm kind of liking that it's a nice little bonus anyway. No, I don't think it's particularly gonna win everything, but no, I'm sorry, I kind of like it, ladies and gentlemen. I kind of like it. And that brings me to the 4 Pokemon that I believe are particularly good in a pre-release format. I am not arguing that these Pokemon are going to wreck the format, but I am arguing that in a pre-release they are particularly good, and hopefully you'll see why. First of all, Blacephalon. 1 Psychic, 1 colourless energy. It's actually one of the pre-release promos. You get to place 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. But if your opponent has exactly 3 prizes remaining, you get to place 12 damage counters, anywhere you like. But of course, it's a pre-release. You start with 4 prizes, and you're pretty much only playing single prize Pokemon. So by the time you've got 2 energy on this, your opponent should have 3 prizes remaining, and then you get to drop 12 damage counters in any way you like. It's pretty gosh darned awesome. Shout out also to Ultra Necrozma, and it's a very similar thing. Ultra Necrozma can only attack if your opponent has 2 or fewer prize cards remaining, but in a pre-release that's going to happen pretty quickly. And for 2 energy you do 170 and discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. In a real format, it's a little bit slow for the 2 energy, and it's right at the end of the game, and your opponent's going to be taking out your GXs, etc. But in a pre-release full of single prize Pokemon, it's just your opponent takes a couple prizes, you've got the energy on, and then you're doing 170, and if you don't get a KO, you're discarding one of their energy. It's absolutely phenomenal. Speaking of absolutely phenomenal, my boy Excadrill. Excadrill is the kind of broken Pokemon you're looking for in a pre-release. It is a stage 1, it attacks for a single energy, and it does 120 damage. Now, we've been seeing here, and I've been pointing out Pokemon that do kind of 120, 130 for free energy and saying, well, it's not great, but it might work in a pre-release. 1 energy, 120 is redonk. Now, you do have to discard the top 4 cards of your deck, but in a pre-release, most of the time, you're going to be playing a whole heap of energy, so you're not often going to discard anything you really want. And then if you can get down to 3 or fewer cards in your deck, you actually do 180 for a single energy. Although, to be fair, Blacephalon and Bryson Man is in this set, so if you ever get down to 3 or fewer cards in deck and your opponent plays Blacephalon and Bryson Man, you both discard the top 3 cards of your deck and you lose. So try and avoid that, would ya? But the number 1 card, as far as I'm concerned, in a pre-release is Golurk. I think Golurk is ridiculous. Golurk for 2 energy on a stage 1 Pokemon does 160 damage. Now, if you've got a supporter card in your discard pile, this attack does nothing, but I certainly have been to enough pre-releases whereby I've just had no supporter cards in my deck. And 160 for 2 energy is nuts. And you've got 140 HP. This is a crazy good Pokemon. And I really do think these 4 are just over and above. I think Blacephalon, Ultra Necrozma, Excadrill, and Golurk are the 4 you really want to be looking out for. Yes, obviously tag teams, but not everyone's going to get a tag team, and they don't really need to be discussed. Everyone knows the tag teams are good. I think some of the Pokemon I've talked about, in fact all 4 of these I think could be pretty decent in the real format, but I think in a pre-release they are borderline broken, they are amazing, and if you get any of these in your pre-release kits, you should very strongly consider popping them in your deck. So there we go, that's what I think in terms of the really good cards for the pre-release, but I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc., head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.